Hello everybody, hope you're having a great day today. Today we're going to work on part 3 of completing the square. For today's lesson we're going to learn how to turn an equation that looks like this into vertex form by completing the square. We've learned other ways to do this, to write this into vertex form, but today what we're going to do is we're going to complete the square to do so, so let's get started. The first thing we need, obviously, is to get it to be x squared plus bx. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add 1 to both sides. Now we're not solving. Notice there's a y here, so we're not solving this. We're just going to on this side have y plus 1 equals x squared plus 4x. Now that I have an x squared plus bx form, I can take half my b value, half of 4, and then I'll square it. So half of 4 would be 2, and 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So that's going to give me x squared plus 4x plus 4 on the right-hand side. And if I add 4 to the left-hand side, I'm going to get y plus 5, because 1 plus 4 would be 5. So here I have my perfect square trinomial, so I'll factor that, and that'll give me x plus 2 squared. And on the left-hand side, I still have y plus 5. Now remember, you can factor to x plus 2 squared quickly by just remembering that when you complete the square, half of the b value here is what you're going to have inside of here, squared. Or if you forget that part, you can ask yourself, since a is 1, what two values multiply to 4 and add to 4, which are 2 and 2, which is why it's x plus 2 squared. So now we have here, to write in vertex form, remember, we want that x minus h squared plus k going on. So we want y to be by itself, so we'll subtract 5 from both sides, and we will get x plus 2 squared minus 5. So we went from standard form to vertex form. The vertex of this would be -2, -5 would be the vertex. Now remember though, if it's asking for the minimum value, well, what is the minimum value? Is the minimum value the x value of the vertex or the y value? It's the y value. So the minimum value of the vertex, you would just write y equals -5. And that is the minimum value of y equals x squared plus 4x minus 1. So for this next one here, we have a little bit of a different issue going on. And that is the negative in front of here. So we're going to take care of that in just a second, but the first thing I want to do again is I want to move the c value. So first I'm going to move c, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. And on the left-hand side I'll have y minus 7. And over here I'll have -x squared plus 2x. Now, remember, I want it to be x squared plus bx. So I have a bit of an issue here because I don't have x squared, I have -x squared. So I have to do something with this negative sign. You can divide both sides by -1, that's an option. Something that most people do is they'll factor the negative sign out, and then they'll have x squared minus 2x inside the parentheses. So I can complete the square of the values inside of the parentheses, and on the left-hand side I still have y minus 7. Alright, so now I have x squared plus bx inside the parentheses. So I'm going to now complete the square what's inside the parentheses. So I'm going to take half of b, which would be -1, and square it, which would give me +1. So I'm going to add 1 inside these parentheses. So I'll have x squared minus 2x plus 1. And that's inside the parentheses with a negative sign on the outside. So now, here's the thing. I added 1 inside the parentheses, but there's a negative sign in front. So did I really add 1 to the right-hand side of the equation, or did I subtract 1? Well, the answer is I subtracted 1 from the right-hand side of the equation, because since I have plus 1 inside the parentheses, after I distributed this negative, it would turn into a minus 1, so I really subtracted 1 from the right-hand side, so I now have to subtract 1 from the left-hand side, give me y minus 8. I anticipate there to be a lot of questions about this part. So again, if you're not really sure about what's going on, make sure you either ask the question on the Google Doc, or you can reach me by email. You can request a Google Meet, and we can talk about it more in depth, and hopefully that'll help. But okay, so at this point we're all set. So what we need to do now is we need to factor the right-hand side. It's a perfect square trinomial, so we'll have x minus 1 squared. I've remembered to bring down the negative sign in front of the parentheses. I have y minus 8 over here. And now I'll add 8 to both sides. So I get y equals negative x minus 1 squared plus 8. So my vertex is 1, 8, since it wants the maximum value of the function. The maximum value would be 8, so I'll just say y equals 8. Now remember, they know that it's a maximum value, or you would know it's a maximum value because the a value is negative, and since the a value is negative, you know that it opens down, right? So that's why it has a maximum value. If the a value was positive, it would open up, and then it would have a minimum value. All right, so we're going to go to these next examples here. Why don't you try these 3 out? Pause your screen. I'll give you a second to pause it. And then when you're all set, you can press play again, and we'll go over the answers. All right, so for number 7 here, I'm first going to subtract 4 from both sides, get y minus 4. And of course, if you just want to see the answers to these 3, just fast forward the video until you see the answers, and if there's any that you didn't get correct, you can then come on back to this part and we'll go over how I did it. Maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can be the one to put it on Google Docs and say, Miss Bove, you made a mistake, so you'll be the hero, which I don't know. If I make a mistake, I'll just edit the video, so might not happen. Alright, now I'm going to factor a negative sign out of this side. Give me x squared plus 4x. And now I'm going to complete the square. So I'm going to add 4 inside the parentheses. And hopefully you were listening. We did the last example, because even though I am adding 4 inside the parentheses, I am not adding 4 to the right-hand side of the equation. I am actually subtracting 4 because of the negative sign in front. So I'll subtract 4 over here and I'll get y minus 8. So my final answer will be y equals negative, and then if I factor this, it'll be x plus 2 squared. And I'll add 8 from this side over here, which will give me plus 8. Alright, so does it have a maximum or minimum value? Well, since it has a negative a value, it has a maximum value because it opens down, and that maximum value is y equals 8. Alright, for number 8, we will subtract 40 from both sides. Give me y minus 40 equals x squared plus 12x. Then we will complete the square for the right-hand side, taking half of our b value, which is 12, giving us 6. 6 squared is 36. So I have x squared plus 12x plus 36 on this side. And if I add 36 over here, I'll get negative 4. Alright, and so now I want to complete the square over here, so that'll give me x plus 6 squared. And I'll add 4 from this side, give me plus 4. We'll have a nice y equals over there. And so we will have a minimum value, and that minimum value will be y equals 4. Show you minimum here for anybody that's fast forwarding it. Maximum over here. Alright, now we'll go to number 9. Alright, so we'll add 2 to both sides, giving us y plus 2 equals x squared minus 2x. If I take half of b and square it, and add to both sides, I will be adding 1 to both sides. Because half of negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. Give me y plus 3 over here. Now I will have y equals, factoring this would give me x minus 1 squared. And I would subtract 3 from the left-hand side, give me minus 3. So our vertex is 1, negative 3. It's going to give us a minimum value. And that minimum value will be at y equals negative 3. Alright, so for the next problem here, if you want to answer this on your own, if you haven't done so already, pause the video and try this one out. Otherwise, we'll move right along. It says which one of the functions could be represented by this graph. Alright, well we know that it opens down, so that means the a value has to be negative. So right away that eliminates this one, so it's not that one. The other things we know is we know the vertex is a positive x value and a positive y value. This has a negative x value for the vertex, so I know it's not that one. So we could have this one, and it could be this one, because the vertex for this one, at least the x value of the vertex we know for sure, would be 2 plus 8 divided by 5, which is 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So what we'll do now is we'll say, alright, well it has intercepts at 2 and 8, that's a possibility. This has a vertex of 5 and 9, that's a possibility. So it could be this one, and it could also be this one. So both of those functions could be represented by this graph. Alright, so there's one more problem here. It says find the maximum height of the rocket, find and interpret the axis of symmetry. Remember, the axis of symmetry is the x value of the vertex. So the first thing I want to do, if I'm trying to write this in vertex form completing the square, is factor out a negative 16, which would give me x squared minus 6 inside y equals, of course. Alright, this one you're going to get mad at. So I'm going to take half of b and square it. Should be an x here. So I'm going to take half of b and square it, which is going to give me positive 9. So I'm going to add 9 inside the parentheses. Adding 9 inside the parentheses is not adding 9 to the right hand side. I'm actually subtracting, well, whatever 16 times 9 is, right? This is negative here, so 16 times 9 is 144. Since it's a negative, I am actually subtracting 144 from the right hand side, so I have to subtract 144 from the left hand side. And now I will factor the right hand side and get x minus 3 squared plus 144. So for A, the maximum height of the rocket is 144 feet, and the axis of symmetry is the x value of the vertex, which would be 3. And to interpret it, it takes 3 seconds for the rocket to reach its maximum height of 144 feet. So if there are any questions, please write them in the Google Doc, or email me if you want to meet via Google Meet. There's some big ideas problems to complete. Besides for that, have a great day, guys. Good luck.